All right. So today, welcome to the first package demo. Hopefully, first of many. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the upcoming Conan package manager and package registry on GitLab. I'm going to take everyone through just a quick run through of how to set up using GitLab as the package registry for Conan and create some repositories, installing and uploading a package, and some of that basic functionality. So I've started out, I've created a project here that is a Conan project. It's a really, really basic C++ app that is a hello world type app. And this is actually complements of the Conan documents. They have a hello world app that is shared on here. And their documentation is great if you're just getting started with Conan or kind of curious how things work. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to need to do is, and I'll bump this size up if everyone can see, just give me a holler if anything is a little bit too small. So the first thing we need to do is create the actual Conan package. So we have this project, which is C++ code that we can run.
Sorry to interrupt you. I don't think you're sharing your screen, and it sounds like you're intending to.
I am absolutely intending to. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries.
This should make a lot more sense now. All right, sorry about that. So yeah, as I was saying, I've got this initial project that I've created, basic C++ app. And what we're going to do to start out is create the Conan package. So over here in the terminal, I'm just gonna run a simple Conan command, Conan create. We wanna create it in the current folder. And then Conan uses this method of you add the attributes that you want to add to the package. And so the first attribute we add is the path to the actual project. So you'll see that it's root plus Conan test local, and this matches our project path up here. So this is a way for, since we're initially implementing an instance level package registry or repository, we need a way to be able to identify which project we're looking at. And so this is kind of how we do that. And then we can add our tags, which this one we can call something like beta. And this is just all kind of like the standard Conan syntax, and it can be found in the docs pretty easily. Whoop. And of course, we don't have the Conan file py. So let me just make sure, should double check this before I got started. And trying to remember what, bear with me while I do some live coding here.
This is the demo gods. You have to always pay the demo gods.
Like practice it twice yesterday, and then the first one today, of course, is not quite right. Let's just see. I'm just going to take a look at what is going on here. And so I'll actually, let's see. I'm going to switch over. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to, real quick, to another project that I know does in fact work, since that was like a new one that I tried to spin up, but I must have missed a file or copying something somewhere along the way. So yeah, sorry about that. All right. So this is just another project that I have set up in the same space. And so over here, I'm going to kind of run the same idea. I'm going to go Conan create, and this one has a different file path, my Conan project, and we'll call this one stable because hopefully it will work properly. There we go. All right, and so that's just doing, this still has nothing yet to do with the GitLab side of things. This is sort of just creating the Conan package and setting it up. And I bring it up specifically because at this point, this is when we need to identify the package as being using that project path. All right, so once we have that, we can go through the process of connecting to the GitLab registry. So the first thing we need to do is add GitLab as a remote to Conan. And so that can be done with Conan remote add. And so in this case, I'll add it as GitLab, even though this is going to be my local host. We'll call it GitLab. Oh, and it looks like can't have two with the same URL. So we'll stick with localhost. So I've already added this, as you can see. And if we take a look at my remote list, we can see that I have the Conan Center, which is the main sort of like Conan registry that's out there, kind of similar to Maven or npm.js. And then we have my local host, and then eventually, once this is on production, we'll have like a GitLab remote as well. And so that will allow me to make these requests to that remote. And then the second piece of the puzzle that we need to be able to connect to the GitLab registry is a personal access token. And so there's plenty of ways to work about that. I won't go into detail on how that works, but if you go to your settings, you'll be able to create any personal access tokens. And so for the scope of package registries, we just need an API access token. So I've already gone ahead and created that. And the way that we use that is as a precursor for all of our commands. We will add a Conan login username. And this is going to equal your GitLab user that the access token belongs to. And then the Conan password is going to be the actual access token. And then we can run Conan upload, Conan search, and so on. So now that we have the package built, we have our personal access token, we have our remote set up, we can go ahead and upload this package. So it's going to be Conan upload. We will name the package that we created, which is actually listed right here towards the end of the Conan create. And so you'll see that this package is named hello version 0.1, and then the pieces that I added to it when I created it. And so the hello and 0.1, that comes from when you set up your Conan package. And I can show you real quick where that is. So that's sort of, if I can pull in, actually, so I don't lose this. If we take a look at the Conan file, this is the main configuration file for Conan package. And so it's where you'll set up your project name and version, and you can up the version in there as well. And that's all covered in Conan documentation. All right, so back to the upload. So we've got my Conan package name, or they call it recipe. We're gonna upload all of the files associated with that package. And we need to set the remote to localhost. And that should be it. So now we end up uploading. It goes ahead and authenticates against localhost. And then you can see it starts to upload the package. And so to verify that, there's a few different ways. Certainly we can head right over to the UI. And if we load the package page over here, we'll hopefully see, oh, that's actually the old project. I was looking at my, that was the one that didn't end up working. So I'll switch over to the one that did end up working. All right, so there we go. So we've got the package, the stable version. You can see I previously had uploaded one that I'd called beta. And if we click into that, we can see all of the various files that are associated with it, including the main package file, which is the TGC file. Cool. So one other way that we can also check for the package is using the Conan search mechanism. And so to do that, we're going to use the Conan search command, and you can search for packages by the first portion of their recipe, which is sort of just the main name of the package. So we could search for hello, and it'll bring back all packages named hello. We can throw a wildcard in there, and it'll find all packages named in a similar manner. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll set the remote to localhost. And there's a list of all of the packages that exist on localhost that are available publicly or that I have access to that match that name. And so you can see I've gone through a few different iterations here. And so our stable one has shown up there as well. All right. Any questions at all so far about the uploads? And one other thing to note is while I'm using my token and configuration and remote in every single command, you can use the registry JSON file that is available in Conan configuration to configure individual projects to use specific variables and remotes. So you wouldn't have to necessarily do this on every single line, but just for the sake of showing how everything works, I've kept it this way.
And if you were using a CI pipeline, you could just use a GitLab environment variable, right? Like you could just put your personal access token as an environment variable, and that would work.
Yep. Yeah, I believe so. I actually have not yet tried that, but that should work for that case.
And I noticed on the UI, are we that we're not displaying some of the metadata? Is that because there's still front-end work that needs to be done?
No, I haven't collected any additional metadata yet. All of that is going to end up coming from this Conan file.py, but I've focused first on just like getting everything working and then coming back to do the metadata next.
That makes sense. Looking good so far.
Can I just clarify that as well? I just want to add that there is some front-end work that will need to happen to support that data, and it's not as easy as just Steve making it available. So
right.
Yeah, we will have to do some front-end work.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, so now that we've gotten the package upload and can see it in there, so we can kind of get into how we can install it. So Conan works in a way where on any given user's machine, there's sort of a shared area where all of the packages are stored. And then anytime you refer to them, it'll just be pulling from that shared area. So we need to remove the package from our local cache or local store, I suppose. So we're going to do that by saying Conan remove, and then we'll remove this specific package. And you'll notice I'm not using my credentials because I don't want to remove it from the remote registry. I just want to remove it locally. All right. So now that it's removed, we can go to a new project. So I'll just sort of create a directory, Conan install test, and go into it. And from here, in order to install packages, we're going to use the Conan file in order to, it's kind of similar like if you worked with NPM with package.json. It's just a place where you'll list out the different packages that you need for a given project. So we'll create that file, and it has a block of area where we can put the various package names. So we'll add our package there. Oops. And being C++, it also needs to know which compilers to be using to compile these projects. And so we'll use CMake. All right. So oops, and we're actually going to be using stable, the one we just created.
You are in the root, like in your own folders.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. I mean, it's just, I'll probably delete this after the fact. Oh, I get what you mean. It didn't actually go into that folder. Thank you. And let's go ahead and all right. Cool. So from here, we'll create a build directory and cd into that. And from there, now we can run the install. And so it works in a similar way. We have our credentials that we're going to be using. And we will do a Conan install. And you use 2 periods. This is all kind of just common nomenclature where this is what identifies that we want to be building into the current directory and using the Conan file text file from the previous directory. And from here, we will just set the remote to localhost to look for that package there. And, oh, that's because I entered the wrong file name. I had everything set up using that new project name, but we ended up using the old one. So updating around there. All right, let's try that again. All right, so now it looks like it went ahead and downloaded all those files and installed it. And you can see that in our build folder, we have all of the various sort of metadata files, and then they'll be referring to the package that's in that shared area of Conan in my local store. And so like the last piece of functionality that we might want to deal with is removing the package from the remote. So if we wanted to actually delete the package on GitLab, that's as easy as running that same exact remove command as before, but instead of just doing it locally, we set the remote to localhost here, and it will go through and delete that package. We can verify that by going back here, and the stable version is no longer there. All right. So does anyone have any questions about how it all works or anything else that happened?
Put some questions in the agenda.
Oh yeah, got the agenda. All right, Dan, did you want to, and I can stop sharing now. Did you want to verbalize your question?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Has any part of Conan appeared to be compatible with anything GitLab-y so far, like Border DevOps, et cetera, et cetera?
Not that I've noticed or seen. I admit, like, I don't necessarily know how all of the auto DevOps stuff comes together. So I'm sure that there might be some things that would need to be worked on to get it to work with auto DevOps, but I can't think of anything specific that's like incompatible.
It didn't seem to jump out at you as being like different from the other package managers that we have already.
Not specifically. In terms of how a user ends up using it, it's somewhat similar. I think the way that Conan itself works, there's no necessarily like the way that Conan itself works is certainly different, but from the aspect of how a user would use it and how the pipelines would probably access it, it seems to be very similar, where we just need this access token, and eventually we'll be able to use job tokens as well, which I think would allow us to be able to do that.
Cool. And then I have a couple of things in there that we probably don't need to verbalize, but you can probably read those for yourself. Realistically, I just want to call out you should delete that, Pat, and just so that there aren't any questions afterwards. Just because someone could watch this.
Was planning on it.
Yeah, cool. Conan ASCII, we can skip over that. And the other thing I was thinking was, like, as we build up package managers, it'd be cool to be able to call out the actual package file while we've got all of those different things, with whether that's an icon or highlighting. So I don't know how we would go about doing that, but just an idea to keep in there.
Well, I think, I guess I'm not 100% sure, but I do think that all of the files are needed. Like, I suppose that there's probably a way that I don't know how people necessarily use these all. So there probably is ways to just download that single main package and unzip it and use whatever in it. But if you're using Conan, you generally need all of those files. Ian, did you want to verbalize your question?
Yeah, so as you were kind of implementing and building the Conan package registry, was there any like aha moments or gotcha moments that you wanted to share that maybe we could facilitate in the UI or with the new feature?
Let's see. I feel like I had a lot of aha moments, but in terms of how we could facilitate into a new feature, I think, yeah, it kind of comes down to just sort of like realizing that, all of these package managers are kind of doing the same thing, which we sort of already knew, but how do we generalize that? And one of the things I noticed very recently is that a lot of these packages, the metadata exists in one location. And maybe it's possible that instead of trying to collect all of that metadata and store it in additional places in order to be able to, add it to the UI, if we know what file that is that everyone wants to see, like maybe we should just show them that file in the format they're used to seeing. So for example, like NPM, everyone uses package.json, and that's where most of the important metadata exists. So would it be useful for some users to just be able to view that file rather than seeing a redesigned list of those different attributes? And the same kind of goes for here. There's that Conan file that has all of the various configuration. Nika?
Yeah, so my question is, since you work with it and you have a good feeling of it, how many of those commands will we be able to like prefill in the UI for the user? Probably we won't be able to put we shouldn't put a personal access token, but the rest also info that we have in the system to build them for like to make their life as easy as possible.
Yeah, I think most of the commands are fairly straightforward. So I think that we shouldn't really have any problem setting up a way that a user could, have a template or a pre-designed pipeline that uses these commands. It's just a matter of, it really is just, you need to authenticate and set the remote. And so those are two things. If the remote is always going to be their GitLab instance, that can be automated, and then if the tokens, if we eventually are able to add job tokens, then I think we should be able to have templates and ways of having this sort of pre-filled altogether. Does that answer the question? Cool. Nick?
Yeah, so I noticed that you performed a search using the command line interface. Do the other package registries that GitLab supports, do we allow users to be able to search via their command lines if it's supported?
No, right now we don't have support for searching through the other package managers. I think this is the first one that we've added that. Because I know,
Right.
I believe both NPM and Maven have that function, but we haven't implemented it.
So as part of the Conan work, we've built the search functionality on the back end, have we?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Is that generic or is that specific to Conan?
It's specific
Like,
to Conan.
okay.
Some aspects are certainly generic, but Conan makes an API call to a specific endpoint to do the search. So that endpoint is very specific to Conan. And then from there, that endpoint calls out to a finder to find the proper packages that are being searched for. And that might be a bit more of something that can be used more universally.
Yeah, like my thoughts were, I was wondering if the actual search was just a generic database lookup and therefore could relatively easily be applied to other package registries and then eventually hooked up on the front end. But yeah, sounds like there's a bit more work than I was hoping for there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like on that front, this is sort of it's a detail of the API that is required for the function of the command line executable. But that doesn't mean we couldn't have a generic, search tool once we get all of this stuff in the database. It doesn't have to be per API. It's just when we're trying to support a command line, it's expecting certain endpoints and certain responses. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but I believe in this case, this search endpoint / functionality was required for the operation of the command line, even at a basic level.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was strictly required, but it sounded like that it was one of the sort of major commands that users use. So that's why we included it in the initial implementation. All right, it looks like we're right at time here. So if there's any other questions, feel free to add them to the document and I'll try to answer them there. But otherwise, thank you all for coming and good luck with the rest of your day.